CFO Panel Discussion on Survivonomics, weaving financial prudence to proof against future shocks. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our panel moderator, Mr. Dhiraj Bhandary, partner, Deloitte India. May I also present you our expert panelists. We have with us Mr. Gaurav Seth, Chief Financial Officer, Airtel Payments Bank. A very warm welcome to Mr. Susheel Tanwar, Chief Financial Officer, Kmart Group Australia. May I also present to you Mr. Sumeet Pathak, Digital Workforce Evangelist, IMEA, Automation Anywhere. And let me now hand over to Mr. Dhiraj Bhandary to proceed.
Hey, thank you, Isha, and good afternoon, everyone. I think the first thing that I want to make sure is all of you are doing well and in the best of spirits this afternoon. I know it's a wrong time to ask this question, but I heard our previous panelists saying in the times when everybody's it's important for us to stay positive outside of what's happening in the COVID side, right? So it's really my pleasure to host this eminent panel today. We have a very interesting topic to discuss: Survivonomics. What were some of the techniques and tools that my finance experts here used in their organizations, right? Especially during the last 1 year, I think we've seen a lot of turbulence. I can probably ask Susheel and Gaurav to actually walk us through how many times they planned, reforecasted, and looked at multiple scenarios as things evolved. And I can definitely say through, talking to a lot of my finance friends that I think the finance organizations didn't even believe that this is the kind of resilience that they had, in times of a crisis. This was never time tested, right? We were always used to sitting and working at home. So this is going to be really interesting. And then Sumeet on our panel will bring in some interesting points of views on how does digital FTs really emanate, right? And how are they really changing our landscape? So we have experts here, Susheel, Gaurav, and Sumeet, bringing different experiences, right? Gaurav, all the way BFSI with deep experience across that, handling a very young company now, I would say Airtel Payments, and then Susheel, who brings brick and mortar experience and startup experience. So it's pretty interesting, and I'm really looking forward to the views. And then Sumeet driving a lot of transformation across his past life, right? So with that kind of an introduction, maybe we can start getting into a conversation, right? So can one of you just walk us through your agile planning journey in your organization, right? When COVID struck us last year, Jan, Feb, I think we took things a little differently. March was when a lot of things changed. Most of us actually managed to close our books on time. But how did we look at budgets and plans, and how did your entire planning mechanism really work? Right? We'll be really keen to hear from Gaurav, Susheel, you, Sumeet.
Sure. So I'll go first, and then really Susheel, if Susheel can.
Yeah, of course.
So first of all, thank you for having me here, and it's a pleasure to be a part of this eminent panel. Obviously, as Dhiraj, you mentioned, this is a time when we all have to be safe, and I hope everybody here and everybody who's listening, all of us are safe and sort of healthy. Now, in terms of the last year, and I had thought it was the past, but unfortunately, it's the present as well. When I look at what happened now, I'll actually take a step back and say, see, the industry where I am in, which is payments and banking. Now, today it has become an extremely competitive, innovative space, and hence, as an organization, we've always been agile. And when I say agile, what I mean is that we've been always looking at possibilities of improving, possibilities of making new changes in a short time. And therefore, as a process, we always had something which was a quarterly cadence, wherein we used to look at various business segments, look at them from the market, opportunities, look at them from the capital efficiency. So we were continuing to make these changes, adopt new practices, do new ways or implement new ideas. Now, this is something that we were always doing. Over the last 1 year, which has been extremely dynamic, as you mentioned, we had to actually readjust our priorities and our product plans. And therefore, because we had this rigor of a quarterly one in place, we actually went into a slightly more detailed one, a slightly more deeper one, and we started doing it on a monthly basis. the rigor in place. The only thing that changed was we increased the timing, and we increased it by say from a quarterly to a monthly basis. And therefore, all we had to do was tweak, make adjustments, and hence what I'm trying to actually mention here is, one is the last year. It's not just about the last year, it's about making sure that you're agile any point of time. And that is how the organization had behaved. We had to make a few tweaks, we had to make a few adjustments over the last year, and we were able to sort of deliver on our promises to our customers, on our promises to our stakeholders. So that's what I'll say is about how has it been the last year.
Susheel?
All right. Thank you, Dhiraj. And very interesting to hear your story, Gaurav, and very similar to what Gaurav and Dhiraj have spoken about. I wish everybody is staying safe. Hope you all and your loved ones are also doing good. This is unfortunately not the best time for any of us, but be optimistic, stay optimistic, and keep doing the right thing for you and your family. With that, I'd like to probably jump into the core part of the discussion. I think the journey of what we have done in the Kmart world is pretty similar to what Gaurav has also shared. So from a business perspective, while introducing my profile, Dhiraj was also talking about this brick and mortar thing. So to give you a quick background to all the audience, we are brick and mortar stores, nearly 500 stores in Australia and New Zealand primarily. And whatever gets sold on those stores eventually gets manufactured in the various Asian countries because of the quality as well as the pricing requirements. Now, we have to manufacture these products in Asia, need to sell these products in Australia and New Zealand. And in between comes the huge supply chain. That's what we need to understand, right? So there are sourcing companies, there are customers who are buying the products, and COVID has impacted all of us, beginning fiscal year or the calendar year end 19. F20 has been very tragic, and we are in F21 still facing these events. So one of the things which we have learned is that these black swan events will continue in one form or the other, right? First of all, COVID is just an example. It could be the water crisis, the climate issues in the future, whatnot, right? In order to mitigate these kind of challenges successfully, we have to be agile, of course, and not just the financial processes, but the overall processes like how we sell it to the customer, how the customer tastes are changing, and how quickly we reflect those changes in the taste of the customer in our planning cycle. How do we anticipate what kind of products will be demanded more, and accordingly we adjust our financial planning according to that. So clearly we have increased our frequency of planning, doing the financial review more deeply. We have also introduced a number of agile planning processes. So those kind of things are happening. Currently, we are planning for F22 because our financial year starts from July 1. And yesterday only I reviewed the version number 10 of the budget with our global CFO. So that gives you a kind of insight which we are trying to bring into the whole processes. So the process have always been matured. We are trying to become more agile by bringing number of other processes. So we have initiated a program called DISCO, which talks about the digital supply chain automation. As I was trying to explain you earlier, supply chain is the key factor because the COVID, lot of capacity from the guys like Maersk and other guys who provide these supply chain solutions, it was pulled out of the market. So how we get what is demanded in Australia in a timely manner, that was a big challenge. Right, the product availability was a challenge. We were hearing some lost sales kind of issues as well. How do we reflect quickly all that information with the help of a data and analytics in our financial planning process? So that has become a more routine kind of item now. Right. So with that, I'll stop there and then give it to Dhiraj.
Yeah, before going to Sumeet, right, I just wanted to understand if Susheel, Gaurav, did you guys use any kind of tools, to drive this whole agile planning kind of approach? And what were, I heard you mention DISCO, Susheel. So was that some kind of a platform or was it more of a framework?
Right. Yeah, you're right. It's more of a transformation initiative, Dhiraj. So what we did is we actually brought one of the consulting firm to help us with the overarching digitization of our supply chain processes. So we also have capability center in Bangalore who help us with help us building new kind of capability which provides us a competitive edge over a period of time. So one of the team which we have in Bangalore provided us a number of solutions around the data analytics. Right. So, for example, Australia, Melbourne, and other cities, Victoria, New South Wales, they were under lockdown for an extended period of time last year. So that changed the habits of consumers to a dramatic extent. People were not going out, so obviously they were not buying formal clothing, they were buying more comfortable clothing, right? So accordingly, we have to adjust our algorithm to reflect on the customer taste so that the right information get passed on to the sourcing team in a timely manner, and we work with the right kind of suppliers who can continue to provide the right products at the right quality and the right price, right? And accordingly, we also moved location A, say China, probably the right country for some products, but may not be the relevant country for any other product in the future. So we continue to make that adjustment and rebalanced our resources and portfolio continuously. So yes, we did the introduction of tools as well as these new transformational processes introduced very rightly in our systems.
Gaurav, how about you guys? Because I think the scenario has changed, right? Because from a payment side also, a lot of things would have changed last year.
Yes. So, and interestingly, while Susheel is in the brick and mortar kind of an organization, we are very different. However, the frameworks continue to be the same. Susheel mentioned that they were talking about consumers wearing more casual clothes rather than formal clothes. We moved away from customers will probably not go in and walk in. They will do a lot more digital transactions. We said that customers will, and therefore we started giving customers leads, or we started giving customers we started pushing customers towards doing digital transactions. And hence the notifications that started going to the customers was more to use digital rather than going to an outlet and doing the transaction. So it's and in terms of when you said, is there a tool or a framework? I think for us it's a framework. We always operate within that framework. We always operate within the framework of saying we review every project on at least a quarterly basis, and we continue to make modifications as we go in the process.
That leads into a good conversation, and over to you, Sumeet. I mean, you've been driving automation across your career, and I think banking is one area that you've touched, and now with several other industries. So, what's your point of view on this, and how do you think the whole digital kind of really merges with this whole thought process?
Thank you, Dhiraj, and good afternoon to everyone. And as Susheel and Gaurav spoke about, I hope you guys are safe and healthy, and stay positive and test negative, as it said. Before I get to that question, Dhiraj, I would like to take opportunity just to tell Susheel that Kmart was one of my first employers when I was in Australia. So I used to stack over there when I was a student. So it's in Melbourne, in Blacksburg. So it's a strong association I have with that. We used to look for working with the weekends, Christmas holidays, because we used to get good money at that time. So I thought I will let you know. And Gaurav, just one thing before I come to your point. So from the customer behavior perspective, my parents, right, they are in their 70s, I told them, why don't you go with digital payment? So Gaurav, their point was, I have someone, why should I go for digital payment? It was like they have someone to help, they will go and do the payment, right? Now, because of COVID, right, there is a change in behavior big time. And as you also just mentioned, that has basically led to a spike in digital payment because the mindset has changed, and so has the behavior of the people, right? Now, if I take that particular connotation and come to Automation Anywhere, we have got some 4,000 plus enterprise customers across the globe. When last year, when this pandemic was upon us, we saw that every customer is impacted, but they're impacted in a different way. In a different way, as in that there are certain customers who we thought needs to be efficient. So they're impacted, but they need to be efficient in what they're doing. For example, you've got pharma industry, healthcare, hospitals, government, and ministry, right? Then we had certain buckets of the customer. They have these survival issues like hospitality, airlines, and small and medium businesses. And the third category was more towards saving the customers like banks and insurance. So depending on which bucket you basically fall under, the approach was to be agile for, of course, to respond to the need, but in a different way because they had different capacity. For example, the survival mode for airline industry, right? As we all know, in month of March, I myself went on a call and was trying to cancel the ticket and to get some refund. With no success, 2 hours on the call, nothing happened, right? So now in that situation, how do you basically ensure that while you're going through financial duress, you basically save the reputational damage? And that's where the digital worker comes into picture. You basically have got these spikes in these calls coming through. How do you create the capacity from the existing resources? So they basically focus on more extremely important things, and this activity on a logical basis can be taken care with the help of digital worker, or as we call it, bots, right? We also saw a lot of the FMCG customers, or they, and Susheel, to your point, as you spoke about the supply chain perspective, they had to not only save the bottom line, but they had to also think about how do I come up with the new top line avenues. Okay. For that, you have to, when you're changing your business model to make sure that your lights are on, they're looking at the CFOs to help them, because CFOs became at the center of everything, right? So it was more about not only saving, but also surviving. And with the top line, you have to basically then get onboard the new vendors, because you're trying to open the new business line. So it was not only just in time deliverable, it was just in case, right? And when that happens, how do you keep yourself agile? And that's where then you get digital workers in place who basically then go for RFP. The RFP goes out, you get the response. You have the digital bots, comparing from what was requested to what has come through. The exceptions are handled by humans, but then the selection is made. And so the entire process gets digitized to work and respond. Right. So again, so coming back to the point, the idea was depending on which industry you are in. As Gaurav also said, right, we thought it's going to be one time, but no, we are in this thing for a long inning. It's considered to be a test match. And how you respond to it in a way that you do not only survive, but you also basically not only survive, but scale and thrive. Right? And so I will subsequently I'll also talk about how we are seeing finance is transforming as a result of this particular.
Hey, thanks, Sumeet, for that perspective. And just another question. And since Susheel mentioned about the entire tool analytics, etc., that they're driving. Gaurav, you mentioned about the framework in which you're working. So how did your decision-making timelines really change in the last 1 year? Do you see a speed that has come in and agility that has come in? And are your systems more connected today from a planning perspective? Like Susheel mentioned, supply chain linking to the customer who's buying what and changing the preferences. So is there a connected planning that is happening? And similarly, Gaurav, from your perspective, right? How are you really, and it's difficult, right? I don't know who's going to go and pay at what time using my app or using my payment system. So how are you really connecting the consumer side, the supply side, and then bringing it into finance and making that entire whole, right? So any views on that or any learnings from there?
Okay. Is that for me, Dhiraj?
I mean, either of you.
Yeah, please go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. So, see, when you say how is finance sort of connected with all of this, again, as I mentioned, there is a framework that we run. The framework is very clear. There are multiple teams that sit together, do up the plan. And the plan, therefore, right now was being done on a periodic basis. Now that periodicity just increased, as in it shortened. That was one. Two is, you also mentioned about what were the timelines of decision making. Obviously, the decision making had to be much more quicker than what it was. So anyways, I come from an insurance background where we take time. There's a lot of time that is taken before a decision is taken, because it is a slightly slow, more it's a slower than sort of payments bank industry. Payments bank industry is an extremely aggressive, is extremely competitive, and hence has to be extremely agile. And therefore the decision making that we had here anyways was very quick. The only thing that happened was something that used to get decided in 48 hours. We started deciding in 4 to 6 hours. How did we go about this was, as again, it is all connected. It's all like we created frameworks, additional frameworks, wherein we created small pods, and we got relevant people. So suppose there was a pricing decision that we had to make for a retail product which was being sold offline. We got the man on the street, his zonal manager, the head of sales, the products guy, the technology guy, all of them into a room, and we started. So instead of sort of waiting for research to happen, research to complete, we started closing off things in the room within the meeting. So those were the kind of things that we did over the last 1 year. If I might just want to say, or if I might just add and take it this forward, how is this going to help me in the future as a finance professional? Obviously, what it has done is, one is in terms of the entire team, it has got the team connected much better. Two is the understanding of the products, because we were taking such quick decisions. The understanding of the man on the street, the understanding of what the customer is thinking has improved tremendously. And hence, as we go forward and as we look ahead, I feel that these decisions will help us take more and more quick decisions, and it will only help us grow. So I'm seeing a positive out of the negative. Negative obviously is this situation. The positive out of this has helped us, the organization, develop frameworks, develop platforms to sort of connect people together and take quicker decisions.
Yep. Got it, Gaurav. Sumeet, over to you.
Yeah, so let me give a perspective of what you spoke about, right? See, the way we see it when we look at our particular customer is the composite KPI through which they are driven. Like, so for example, the value chain has got various different KPIs through which they work. For example, they look at service excellence, product excellence, ops excellence, right? Now, if I take example of say again the supply chain perspective, so from customer calling the contact center, going through digital, doing the order management, which leads to demand planning, production, supply chain, it payables, it loops back into procurement, inbound logistics. As you can see, all of these steps which I am talking about as part of the value chain, it has got service excellence, product excellence, and ops excellence built into it, right? So how do you basically make sure that digital workers come into picture and then automate, say, the part of, say, order management or demand and planning? Create the human bot collaboration so that the humans can then work on exception basis, but the volumes is taken care by the bot. So then you work towards the service excellence and, as I said, ops excellence, right? So I think that's how we have seen our customers looking at the end-to-end value proposition of digitizing it and then bringing the actual solutions to the core. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think I can also echo on some of the points that, Gaurav, Sumeet, you are making. Many of our clients during the last 1 year have looked at, the collaboration, Gaurav, that you mentioned about the different pods. They have taken it to a large digital platform is the way I would call it, right? We have a collaboration which can, obviously there are conversations, etc. But for decision making, they have looked at, things like connecting the different planning elements on a platform so that the decisions can be taken faster. I mean, through a bot, through a planning tool, or whatever you call it. It's basically digital, right? And you can give it any fancy name. But the way they have extended the collaboration, because what is really happening, and we'll come to you, Susheel. I think you are back. So the whole conversation has drifted from, like Gaurav, you said, the 45-day planning window to probably a day's planning window. Especially because in the first phase of the COVID wave, we saw lockdowns like happening left, right, and center, right? So today suddenly something was called a containment zone, so you couldn't really deliver anything there. And especially for brick and mortar businesses, it became very, very different. And they had to really figure out how to get their stuff there. Suddenly a factory would get closed down because you found a COVID positive case. You have to sanitize the place. You have to stop the operations. So then where do I supply from? So figured out a mechanism of getting this on a connected platform where finance, supply chain, customer facing guys could actually come and interact together, going beyond just conversations, but really crunching data using whatever analytics and information that is lying out there. Susheel, this is the topic that we were discussing. I don't know how much you heard, because I saw there was a couple of disconnections. But what we were trying to understand is, how did did you use any platforms? How did you get people to collaborate, right, and make this story really come together?
Yeah, apologies. The connection got bad. I think people in the family started using the internet more than me. And I know this keeps happening all and every now and then. Apologies for that. Yeah, so coming back to your question, Dheeraj, yeah, these are the few risks that we keep on working through these days, because we need to keep understanding the risk landscape and need to come up with all this mitigation plan. The factory may go down at any point in time. The Maersk, other these kind of guys may have some sort of challenges in providing the vessel space to us, and probably we may need more space in the vessel than what is available in the market at any given point in time. So we need to throw more dollars or do whatever. I think the key idea here is, how do we ensure that there is no vacuum of information? I think that's what we always try to do, that how do we ensure that there's no vacuum of information? And then the key lies in the collaboration. Right, so in a virtual environment, right, let's assume we are in non-COVID environment. With the fact that we are a geographically dispersed organization, right, we can only be connected through technology, even in that environment. And more so these days, right? So that platform of staying in connection virtually has scaled up multifold. I think that's the only thing which is happening now. What we have done in the background is we have created a number of forums within the organization where leadership team, the extended leadership team, the functional leadership team, they are working with each other. And what we are ensuring is that one representative which exists in one particular team is actually participating in any other forum as well, so that there is no vacuum of information. Right, whatever the challenges, for example, supply chain is seeing, hey guys, this is coming up, so they can come in the other leadership team meeting and they can flag it. Right, for example, one of us, for example, I'm the CFO of the sourcing organization. I represent the various finance team members, and I work with Australia to sort out those kind of issues from the finance perspective. Similarly, somebody in sourcing. So we have created this kind of interconnected organization where there is no vacuum of information. And as we know, information leads to decision. So if the information is being received in a timely manner, the decision automatically becomes more timely, more accurate, and thus giving us the right. In case you didn't hear me, probably I can repeat myself. What we did is, the key idea was ensure there is no vacuum of information. That's point number one. Point number two is we created number of informal or formal organizations within the functional team, across the functions, with Asia and Australia and Bangalore as well. So geographically dispersed organization, functional team, and ensure that there is no vacuum of information.
Got it. So coming to you, Sumeet, I think over the last 1 year, right, a lot of finance organizations especially took up the digital journey, right? And especially around, I think the pressure was more on two areas, I would say. One was obviously planning, and other was also the processes moving virtual. So what were some of the learnings that we have from the last 1 year's journey? And if you can really share that to start with, and then we'll go to Gaurav and Susheel, right?
Sure. So I think, interesting part has been, so our existing customers, we reached out to them during the lockdown and we asked them, okay, how is it going with your business? Are you able to basically work with the BCP situations here? And we did, there was common theme which came across, saying that because they already have digital worker in place, that has basically helped them to, provide that cushion of not invoking BCP, because when you have bots, you don't need BCP, it will take care of itself. What that does is, with help of digital worker, they were able to, have there was no as such impact on the financial close process. The reconciliation and intercompany settlements were automated, right? Their accounts payable invoice processing was streamlined. The fraud detection, improve accuracy on regulatory reporting. So all of those things which they were doing at the time, say before March, Jan, Feb last year, that continued in today's time as well, because it was divided between, it was human bot collaboration and things like that, right? So that's how it is. And I'll give you a couple of more examples, like your O2C, P2P, and market to serve, hire to retire. All of these processes, which was basically automated, so it becomes very easy to basically maintain them when the digital worker is working with you. Having said that, what we have seen is also that a mindset has come, and where I think how quickly you can close the book. So Gaurav, I believe you did mention that to close the book within certain period of time. What we are looking now, CFOs are looking at, is the touchless. It's like financial factory. It's like touchless as far as automation is concerned, and make it a financial ops completely touchless. What that does is that basically it provides you with a real-time closure, because you don't have to wait to get the data. You don't have to go for creating the reports. It gets generated automatically, which means that the role of finance, from what we are seeing from the operation perspective, is changing. So when you got your CAs of the world who are basically trying to get the data and trying to make the report, now what you're doing with real-time finance is they are looking at the report, trying to understand the trend and bringing that to the senior management to make the decision faster, and more so now, because with such uncertain times, you want to be ahead of the curve. You want to anticipate where the next challenge could come through. So it's all about creating that capacity and using that brain power to make it better for the organization.
And any pitfalls that you saw in the last 1 year, which could and now we are, I think, out of the blue hit by the second wave. So is there something that we need to take as learnings from the last year and implement it going forward?
So, see, a couple of things which we saw, and it's interesting enough. So I'll talk about wave one itself. See, when wave one was at peak, China was coming out of it. Okay. So what we saw, there are certain trends which was coming through that. For example, I think Susheel, you spoke about the casual clothing, right? We saw that the China's sale went off the roof from the car perspective. So the people were trying to buy the car, right? So could we learn, because it's a global pandemic, first of all, could we learn that how the industry or the people's behavior would change looking at the other, because we are all interconnected in this globe, right? So different trends in the different part of the world, and anticipate what could come through and be prepared for it. So that is one, right? Because it's very, the consumer behavior nowadays, it's almost similar, because we are all working around digital world, right? Like Amazon ordering from here or Amazon ordering from Australia is going to be the same thing, right? McDonald's gets home delivered here, but not in Australia, but it's a different thing altogether. It's a supply chain issue. But the point is that understand the trend from your colleagues from the other parts of the world who are not in this state at the moment, and see how you can bring that now and take help of your framework which you have put in place to be a bit more resilient.
Gaurav, how about you? What are the learnings from the last 1 year, especially around the finance organization, financial planning, etc.? What can we do better going forward?
Yeah, so if you were to ask me, I think the learnings have been immense. It's about how do we implement them more quicker is the question. And you mentioned about the second wave hitting us out of the blue. While it hit us out of the blue, however, the last wave or the 1 year back, the experience that we had 1 year back, I think the BCP process was already in place. And therefore, when this hit us, it was just putting the blocks back into the last year, and things started moving. As in, if you look at, it's a nightmare for any finance professional to be hit by this either at in March end or in April beginning, because that's when we are closing our books. However, and this time it's been, as in Dhiraj, when we look at this, it's been extremely aggressive, as in terms of the number of cases that are coming in. our auditors are down, our staff is down. However, what has happened is because of the last year's experience, we've been able to migrate a lot of stuff. Anyways, we were working virtually. Now we've been able to migrate a lot of stuff pretty quickly, and now it is running BAU. Having said that, what is the one key learning that I'll still have is the timelines to implement this. While we did all of it within, I'll say, record timelines, however, I think those records are still meant to be broken. As in, they have to be. It has to be as natural as walking into office and working. These things, as I think Susheel mentioned, these things are going to happen from time to time. As in, there'll be one crisis or the other. I think we need to be more better prepared and ready to implement it even in shorter timelines to make it absolutely seamless for everyone.
Got it. Susheel, your perspective?
Has been extremely fruitful when it comes to the new learnings and experience. So first thing which I did was to create 2 new roles in my team. One was to exclusively to support me from the risk perspective for entire Asia. Because earlier the entire focus was more on the typical finance, accounting sort of activities. I did not have any specialist who could help me with the risk sort of work. And as I mentioned, these kind of activities are always going to stay here. So one of the learning was to invest in a risk role. So now I got a risk specialist who is dedicated to this area, who helps me building the risk profile, working with the various leaders across the organization so that we are more prepared to mitigate the risk effectively if we can't eliminate it completely. So that's one of the role. Second role which we did is to focus more on employee health and safety and security. So all these roles were earlier Australia focused, were based out of there only. But given the kind of business we are doing, we thought to extend those roles and hire specific individuals expert in this particular area and help the leadership team in Asia to take the baton forward. So that's one of the big learning which we had, and I'm very glad that these people are really have helped us to build that new muscle and capability, and we are in a much better situation at this point in time. So that's one of the learning. The other learning which we have is, I think people are more open to adapt to technology now. So earlier, probably if it used to take 3 times of communication from my side to automate something or enhance productivity, now people are automatically coming to me that they want to automate these kind of things, because otherwise it will start impacting their KPIs. So now the change management has reduced dramatically. Right, I need to invest very little amount of time as compared to the previous one because people are learning it themselves. So I think these are the couple of good experiences which I have gained during the last 1 year, which is worth sharing with the audience here.
Okay, interesting. Completely agree. The last, probably, we have a couple of minutes before we close. So, survival is all about cash, right? So, how did you guys go about managing your cash flow forecasts and getting a visibility on where the cash is and where it needs to be spent? And how did you use any of your frameworks, tools, etc., to really come with that number? Because I think that's absolutely critical. So, any inputs on that?
Yeah, probably let me take a jab on that, and then rest of the colleagues can jump in. Considering our model, right, people have to pay first before they step out of the store. So what we have done is cash has never been a problem for us, but obviously as the finance guy, we need to drive as much cash generation and preservation for the future. So what we have done is, with the help of data and analytics, we have come up with certain patterns which can help us predict the return, the product return, which the customers were doing in store. So we could actually predict that which customer has the tendency to return the product at what particular point in time. So with the help of the various cameras and various other things that we did in our stores, we could actually see that this guy has a tendency to return the product. He's entering into the store. So let's be a little careful about it, what he buys, and if any kind of dissatisfaction he can carry out of the store. That is one of the things. Specifically from the Asia perspective, I think it was a good opportunity for us to renegotiate certain leases agreement that we had across Asia, in China and Hong Kong. So we made some good savings out of there. In addition to that, we have multiple brands like Kmart and Target, these kind of brands. So we had different offices. Say in Shanghai, we have one Kmart office and one Target. Similarly in Hong Kong. So we co-located all these offices so that people are working out of the same office. There is a better utilization of space, and it is also cash light from the expense perspective. So I think these kind of things has really given us good results during the last 1 year.
Interesting. And Gaurav, how about?
Yes. So before I actually address the point, it's very interesting when Susheel talks about the behavior of a customer in an offline store. The behavior of a customer of an offline store, I actually, it seems that Susheel is also talking about a payments bank, wherein customers are walking in and doing digital transactions, because it's, while obviously there are no returns, but there is a customer behavior, there is a customer psyche, which is actually studied even by us in the bank, and that's how we push notifications. That's how we push offers to him. Coming back to the question, interesting point, because see, what we did was, our revenues obviously had dried up in the first few months. However, what we did was, instead of trying to look at how do we reduce costs, we started redeploying our resources and we started reprioritizing stuff. We also picked up things which were sort of had been put in the back burner because they were more longer term. We started doing longer term projects. We picked up and started solving problems which have been put on the back burner, because we knew that tactical stuff will work, but it will work in a very, very limited way. And therefore, teams which were involved in, say, offline space, we moved them into doing things on the online space, because technology teams are extremely agile and they can work. Similarly, we redeployed resources. So and if I was to talk of now, there are resources, there are lockdowns, let's say, that have happened in Maharashtra. There is a lockdown that has not yet happened in Gujarat. So we've redeployed resources to ensure that while Maharashtra is in lockdown, Gujarat is not, we continue to drive businesses. Those are the kind of things that we did. Those are the kind of things that we are doing even today. So I think that's what has helped us overcome the cash. Obviously there were cash challenges. However, we overcome all of those cash challenges and we deployed it in a much more efficient way.
Got it. And Sumeet, how did your customers look at using digital FTs for better cash flow forecasting and stuff like that?
So I think it is very simple for us. It's about creating capacity, like how Gaurav spoke about, shuffling the resources from one region to another, right? It's also that how do you basically ensure that if your workforce is down or they're completely stretched out, without drying up or siphoning the cash out, can you basically have more capacity and do more with less? So that's where Automation Anywhere comes in, where we bring the digital worker, which can work 24/7 to ensure that the activity is finished, and then that basically provides the ROI. So that's our contribution in terms of keeping the liquidity within the organization.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that kind of brings us, Isha, to the close of the session. Are we out of time, or?
We're perfect on time, sir.
We are perfect on time. Like my finance colleagues here, I think we have reported on time and we are exiting on time. Right. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure hosting all of you on this panel, and definitely look forward to catching up in better times. Thank you, all of you, and thank you, participants on the call.
Thank you, Dhiraj.
Bye bye.
Stay safe. Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye bye.